Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Brands Bites, coming at you with some new information here. Starting with Google's medical AI chatbot is already being tested in hospitals. The Mayo Clinic has reportedly been testing the system since April. Google's Med Palm 2, an AI tool designed to answer questions about medical information, has been in testing at Mayo Clinic Research Hospital, among others, since April. As we just stated in the title. Good job, article writer. So this is a variant of Palm 2, which was announced at Google I/O in May this year. Palm 2 is the language basically running Google's Bard, but this is more specifically for medical information. So, what does MedPalm 2 really do? It's meant to help diagnose. You put in symptoms, you give it symptoms. It goes, hey, this might be your issue here. This is what we would do. And to do that, it basically is going and not quite that accurate because MedPalm 2 still suffers from the accuracy issues we've been seeing in most large language models. Now, imagine if your doctor hallucinates your symptoms, makes up a new disease, and then diagnose you with something that is the first ever because it's not even real. Because that's what current AI models do, is hallucinate. But still, in almost every other metric, other than accuracy issues we're seeing large language models and irrelevant information provided by it, in every other metric, such as showing evidence of reasoning, conscientious supported answers, or showing no sign of incorrect comprehension, it performed just about as well as the actual doctors themselves. So the real takeaway is the AI is not perfect. It's still inaccurate and not always right. And still a lot of medical stuff is guesswork. So it's still just as good as our normal doctors anyways. That's not entirely, but you get the point. So according to Google Senior Research Director Greg Corrado, says that Palm 2 is still in its early stages. While he wouldn't want it to be part of his own family's healthcare journey, so the guy running the program is like, nah, I will pass on this. But for everyone else, let's get it. Take it as he says it, basically, because he believes that this will take place of healthcare where AI can potentially be beneficial and expand, them by tenfold. Basically, the idea being that maybe as of right now, it's not super useful, but at some point you put your symptoms in before you go to the doctor. It's able to spit out hey, these are probably what we're looking for here. These are kind of the diseases I think it could be based off what's been said. These are the most common. Help diagnose you a little bit quicker than a person would. And maybe the person's just got to come fact check the machine. Otherwise, terrifying. Also, even more terrifying, this means Google is having access to your health records because why not? I don't know how that all works for sure, but, it'll be cool when it gets there, but the road to get there is going to be weird. And also, you already hate giving away information to people as it is. Why would you want to willingly give your healthcare information away to companies like Google? I mean, at least in Apple's case, you at least know they try to care about your privacy and have done a fairly good job up to this point. So there's a little bit of backing there, but at the end of the day, Google doesn't have that. So we'll see what happens. Next up is probably my favorite article from today, which is call the Apple lawyers because somebody got Vision Pro to run on the Meta Quest Pro. Now, to put that a little bit in perspective, the Apple headset, the Apple Vision Pro headset, will be coming out next year with around $3,500 as the price tag. There's already been a little bit of rumors, unofficial rumors, that Apple may be changing this due to, some people just, aren't happy that it's going to cost that much for what it does. But somebody has been able to get the actual Apple software to run on the Meta Quest Pro, which costs about $1,000. So even under a third. We're looking at 30%, 28%, somewhere in there. Now, this take on Vision Quest Pro has been made by Supernova Technologies with the goal of promoting its Nova UI framework for Unity It's not a full-scale copy of the operating system, but instead more of a demo. But the idea is you can test out Apple's eye tracking interface, the pinch click, well before the actual Apple headset hits the store. So it's not actually Apple software, but it's a demo of pretty much everything Apple showed off with hand gesture controls and eye tracking controls using the built-in ones in the MetaQuest Pro, but it also looks more like Apple's headset. Now, the wild part about this is if this, obviously there's a little more going on with Apple's headset. The headband looks way nicer than the MetaQuest Pros. It has the outward facing displays for your avatar thing, which at the end of the day, I don't know how much people really care about that right now. Maybe in the future people care about that, but right now it seems, to me at least, to be a weird feature. But this is at least the start of showing that Apple is charging an Apple tax here. Maybe the speakers are better, but if the screens aren't that much better, like if there's not that big of a difference, we're not talking about something that worth it. I mean, this could really show the lead that Meta has in this industry, and Apple just legitimized it for him. So Apple possibly here, if this is as cool as it looks like it is, as we can see here, this is a little demo project. But look, they're pointing with the eyes, it's picking it up. Pinch to tap. Now, this is all stuff too. Like a lot of the stuff Apple showed off, Mark Zuckerberg has said the Meta Quest 3 is going to be more than capable of doing. Which, if that's true, that's a $500 headset. So now we're talking like a seventh of the cost, an eighth of the cost to do the same thing. If that's true, then that is going to be a wild disparage. Now, that said, the Quest 3 obviously isn't going to have nearly the same quality of screens or anything like that. But I gotta say, with the Quest 2 Pro, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like the greatest thing ever, but for $300, you were getting a pretty sweet setup. Now, for $500, after a few years have gone by, who knows what that difference is really going to look like. But in terms of the things that make this headset like cool, is the eye tracking and hand tracking to do things and interact with it where you don't necessarily need the controllers. And if the MetaQuest Pro can already do it, and supposedly the Quest 3 is going to also be capable of it, it's really going to beg you a little more to think about, is that price tag worth it? With the materials Apple looked like they were using, the weight that's going to have. Also, there's something to be said about actually having the controllers, because you get vibration feedback when you're interacting with things, and you're actually like squeezing something. Like, to an extent, it does make it a little more real versus grabbing something with your hand and it like faking it, like you just grabbed the cup there, versus you're grabbing like, sure, you're grabbing, this looks really wrong. Sure, you're grabbing more, but you're grabbing like the controller at least, so there's some feedback there. But this is just for them to have basically, I mean, it's just the main interface here and they launched an app, but to get that copied down within like a month with the eye tracking and pinch click pretty spot on. I mean, it was just shown off by them, but it's crazy that they were able to do that quickly, basically. Next up is probably my next favorite, because if you remember a couple weeks ago now, I believe, Nikola, the electric car truck company, had claimed that there is possibly some arson done at their headquarters on one of their trucks that started on fire. And I had talked about briefly in that video that I remember there being articles or people talking about how Nikola wasn't like that great. Like, they kind of seemed like a scam company. Not that they are. I'm not claiming they are. I'm just saying that, like, articles in the past, fall parts they've had, there's just a lot of red flags. Well, the Phoenix Fire Department has also come out and said that Nikola had quickly claimed that there was foul play behind the fire, and the fire department says it found zero evidence that supports that. So on June 23rd, we reported that the fire department confirming that 5 Nikola semi-trucks were caught on fire at the headquarters. The company was quick to tell the public it believed in foul play that was involved in the fire, but it didn't have a lot of evidence to back the claim. And now the fire department is agreeing that there is no evidence to support that claim. With that, it's undetermined what has caused it for sure, but if I had to guess, Ford just had some fires recently. These electric batteries, these companies, To be honest, Tesla makes it look pretty easy to make electric batteries that don't blow up compared to what these other companies are going through. And I think that's just probably what we had happen here. In their report last week, they also noted how insiders believed it would have been hard to start a thermal event in trucks with arson, as the battery packs were exposed to 1,000 degrees Celsius heat without damaging them in testing. So, how would one have started a truck on fire that would have had to have been that hot? Kind of a big question there. It seems more like some manufacturing defects on the battery. Little Samsung gate, if you know what I'm saying here. But we still don't know for sure, and I'm sure we might never really know anything. A Nikola person has repeated the same thing as last week about not ruling out anything. Basically, uh good luck, boys, because that's just what happens. And the latest, probably biggest news from this past week is Meta launched Threads, the big Twitter competitor. Right as Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are about to go in a wrestling match in a cage and fight to the death to see who gets to keep their text tweeting app of just plain words on a screen, Meta goes and possibly gets a lawsuit started. Elon said on Twitter, a tweet that I remember reading that I'm not sure is in here, is basically that stealing is not okay, competition is great. So Elon was claiming straight up that that Meta stole a bunch of like Twitter backend stuff, and that's how they were able to make the Thread app. And therefore, Twitter is threatening to sue Meta over its new app. Threads, which is a text-based platform similar to Twitter, has passed 30 million signups since its debut yesterday. The question here is, Twitter was already an absolute dumpster fire. Like, that's what it was great at being. Elon bought the dumpster fire and turned it into a slightly more even dumpster fire, and it's still dumpster fire anyway around it. And then Meta was like, we've been working on this forever. A bunch of Twitter people just got laid off because he laid off a ton of the company and probably scooped up a few employees. I'm not saying they did, but if I had to guess, maybe they did. So with that, there's a lawsuit starting. So a lawyer for Twitter, Alex Spiro, hopefully, sent a letter to Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg accusing the social media giant of engaging in unlawful misappropriation of Twitter's trade secrets. They're all little kids here arguing over secrets. Twitter's trade secrets and other intellectual property. Twitter intends to strictly enforce its intellectual property rights and demands that Meta takes immediate steps to stop using any Twitter's trade secrets or highly confidential information. So the war has begun. Gotta be honest, to an extent, sometimes, as somebody who does generally like what Elon does, I also do wonder sometimes if he just plays to his fans. And with that, sometimes accuses people of things that might not necessarily be true right away, because generating headlines is his favorite thing to do, because that's free advertisement, baby. Because everybody knows no publicity is bad publicity, and bad publicity is great advertising. So Linda, I can't remember how to say her last name, but the new Twitter CEO tweeted out that on Twitter, everyone's voice matters. Whether you're here to watch history unfold, discover real-time information all over the world, share your opinions, or learn about others on Twitter, you can be real. You built the Twitter community, and that's irreplaceable. This is your public square. We're often imitated, but the Twitter community can never be duplicated. And that's where the big question comes in for me. With Meta's new launch of Threads, sure, everyone with an Instagram account gets a Thread account, which basically means everybody with a Meta account gets a Thread account. But with all that, what would make enough people fully stop using Twitter to use Meta instead? Like, it's obviously not a feature, but to an extent, Facebook is kind of almost the same thing. And people already don't like that. Now, that said, Threads looks way more like Twitter than it does Facebook. Not that I have an account yet, but just from screenshots I've seen. And there's no shot like a real Mark Zuckerberg tweeted this out, right? Zuckerberg posted a tweet for the first time in a decade yesterday, moments after Threads launch. Sign him up, bro. Let's go. Anyways, I hope that what becomes of this at the end of the day is both CEOs just decide that, you know what, this isn't worth it. Let's just decide that whoever wins the cage match gets to keep the other person's platform. And we'll watch Black Belt in Jiu-Jitsu get walrused by Elon Musk, and then Twitter will just take Threads. I have no idea. This just is an absolute... It seems like a weird... I see why they released it as a meta person, but I also don't see why they did. So, okay. And with that, thanks for watching this episode of the podcast, and I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.